everything is an object. I totally disagree with that way of teaching things. And then you have to think to yourself, well, then why do we start with Java? Because we're trying to spit out clones that can go work at some meat factory as far as coding is concerned to spit out code for some giant conglomeration. And you're not going to get innovation that way. It's not going to happen.
I disagree.
Talk to me. Talk to me.
So, people actually at this point do have an intuitive understanding of objects that are typically represented by what we believe as a solid. Now that said, as you go deeper, you realize that the entire idea of an object is fake, which is where you can see and go, okay, this is all the structure, which ends up doing crazy pointers and other fun things. But if you try to start there, you're going to have a lot more trouble than when you can guess the donut.
I don't know that I agree conceptually, but it's a good point. And by the way, I don't know if you were intentionally making fun of the Buckaroo Banzai reference with talking about solids. Anyway, sorry. Everything I do is deliberate. But I love the way you're thinking. I would love to have a discussion with you about that. Go ahead.
If I could interrupt on one point there.
Sure, please do.
I just came out of a school where Java was my first language that I was taught. And he said that we have an intuitive understanding of objects. That is bullshit.
Yeah.
That is bullshit. I grew up with computers since I was in elementary school. And I was doing random stuff. A deep understanding of objects. When I took Java in school, coming out of high school, I was with a group of people all about the same type of nerd as me. Our minds were melted by what objects were when we'd been scripting our entire high school career. And it took about 5 weeks of doing these labs and everything for us to finally have that epiphany, objects.
Yeah.
Right? Even though we knew all the scripting languages.
Yeah, thank you for that comment. Sounds like we need all to get together and have a drink. Thank you for the comment, by the way. I want to continue the conversation. I'm not kidding. And by the way, people that say stuff like that and they're full of crap, I really mean it. So I do have a room on the conference floor. Come over and talk to me. We got couches to sit down and just chill. Everybody turn and say hi to Russ. Russ is the guy in the black hat right here. So Russ is actually in charge of DEF CON operations. So he's the one you can throw things at when things don't go right. That's probably not a good thing to ask me because of what my background is. I have mixed feelings. I would argue Lisp. Or assembly. So if you take, for example, a deep understanding, in fact, I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Those of you who've been to my one-on-one talks, you'll know. I do kind of a little list of skills that I think everyone that is considering themselves a hacker, a basic list of reference skills that everyone should have. And you would be amazed at some people who are freaking elite coders in certain things that don't have a fundamental knowledge of certain things, which the list is actually in a slideshow, which I'm going to put up. But in fact, when I get to that point, I'll explain to you why I think assembly is important. It has to do with abstraction, because ultimately, what are you doing? You're communicating either with a compiler or with a piece of hardware, a processor. And if you don't understand what's going on under the hood, you're not going to code in certain ways. And I believe that if you teach people how that engine actually works, maybe not to the nitty-gritty to where they're going to go be a designer or write in Verilog or VHDL or something like that, but just fundamentally, I have a switch. I have an and, an or, and a not gate. How do I make a freaking processor from that? How many people today go in and sit down at their computer and don't have that fundamental knowledge? Not at the deep level, but just a general explanation. Like, could you explain to a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old in general terms how that abstraction works? I have literally a wire and I cut it in half, and I can make that a not gate or turn it off, a switch. Because everyone goes, oh, I know that computers use binary. They use ones and zeros. How many of you've all heard people that say, I must be very educated because I know computers use binary. And I go, okay, what does that mean? And they don't understand fundamentally what it means. They're just regurgitating. But anyway, back to what I was going to, and I like this. So at this point, I was going to talk a little bit about the life of a DAT file as far as AV is concerned. Yay or nay? Thumbs up, thumbs down. Nay, I got no. And that comment, just shout it out.
One of the good things is kind of like how you were
Sure, and I can also play devil's advocate and say, because I have instant gratification to knowledge, I'm going to learn quicker and grow faster. And to a point, that is true. If, for example, but what you need to do is you need to learn to use the tool properly. And we as hackers need to learn to use those tools in such a way that still give the benefit of the deep knowledge and understanding, but still take advantage of the fact that it's, for example, I study a lot of foreign languages. Looking things up in a Chinese dictionary is more time consuming than me taking my finger and drawing it into a text box or using text identification. But I can still use the tool in a way that doesn't shortcut that process, where I have just no understanding. It's just a black box function, which goes back to the discussion of Java and objects, which is the whole point of object-oriented programming in the first place, is to abstract, right? Right. Anyway, so you guys don't want to hear about DAT files. That's full, so let's slip past those. Basically, I was going to talk about how DAT files are created. Sorry, give you a little Morpheus there. So I'll talk a little bit about what I was interested in. Ha ha ha. Ryan's really funny. So some of the things I'm interested in classifications of things in the language study. That, by the way, my personal technical philosophy is that all forms of tech are learning communication. Whether I'm learning to speak in language to another person, or speak to a processor, or speak to a compiler and learning that syntax, I believe that mathematics is the language of science and physics. So I'm all about going to the root of whatever that subject area is and trying, like if you're going to learn the Romance language, have some knowledge of Latin, for example. But anyway, we don't want to talk about that. So, yeah, I'm pausing just long enough for you to read the slides for for the few that were interested in hearing about how to break AV engines. So, chipsec. How many of you know what what movie this picture's from? What is it? Barry Gordy's Last Dragon. So in that movie, he's trying to seek out this magical power called the glow, and it's kind of like Dorothy's slippers. You've had it all the time, Dorothy. I have been preaching to the hacker community, you all need to learn and play with a tool called chipsec, and now I have surreptitiously given it to all of you because it is on the conference CD for DEF CON this year. So you're welcome. I saved you the trouble of going to go download it. Go play with it. If you don't know what it is, how many of you know what Metasploit is? Wow, a lot of you don't know what Metasploit is. So chipsec is basically a framework. And by the way, the authors of this are here at DEF CON. And everyone always asks me my opinion. Who should I go hear talk? If you want to have your mind blown, go see Yuri's talk. And I can't remember what the title of his talk is. Look through the program, you'll find it. He's a genius, complete genius. He's the one who created chipsec, he and his team. Go read about what that is. And the reason I bring this up is we as hackers are trying to learn exploitation, whether to fix it or to break it. If you look at the evolution of how we are doing attacks and intrusions and red team pen testing and everything else, we are slowly moving down a stack, right? First we were using stuff in the software, then we were going down to OS, the network, now we're kind of getting a little lower. Now you're starting to hear about BIOSes and you're starting to hear about stuff, and so we are constantly moving, that shift is happening. And chipsec takes you a little bit lower, talking directly to processors, and the reason it's very much applicable, especially this day and age, is it's also applicable against hypervisors. How many of you know what a hypervisor is? This is 101. I'm not trying to insult you all by asking stupid questions. I really, like, for example, a lot of people didn't know what that was. So in dealing with virtualization, you have this thing. This is the Cliff Notes. Again, take it for what it's worth. I'm summarizing. I'm oversimplifying, going back to that deep knowledge. The hypervisor is basically the underlying piece that allows you to do virtualization properly. And so because a lot of our systems now are virtualized in data centers and on cloud and everything else, learning how to attack hypervisor and getting down lower in the stack is more important. So anyway, that's why chipsec's on your CD. By the way, the purpose for me up here for 101 in my mind is to throw nuggets of information into your brains that you may not have thought of or heard of that give you a starting point to start going down the rabbit hole on your own, not to do a deep dive. This is 101. If you want the deep dive stuff that starts tomorrow. So I'm going to give you all the quick basics that are a pet peeve of mine. Now, I was thinking about taking this out of the talk this year because I put these in my 101 talk last year. The reason I left them in is I still to this day am having interactions with people. I go to a lot of security conferences and I try and talk with people, and some of the weird-ass solutions that I come up with things, or the things that I think about, use things that require a fundamental knowledge that some people are lacking, even though they may be a genius or brilliant in a particular area. So these are kind of like tick pet peeves for mine that if you consider yourself a computer person or a hacker, I think you should know these things. It's really fundamental stuff. Here we go. And there's my my fry. How am I doing on time, by the way? I have no idea. Anyone? 3:28. What are we supposed to go to? 4? Okay. 11. We're going. Nice. So I talked earlier. Binary. Everybody hold up your right hand. We're going to count together in binary. If you don't know how to count in binary, I'm going to cry because you're at DEF CON. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, you've all flipped me off at DEF CON. Literally, if you can't do a binary count on your fingers, go home and learn how to do that. If you can't take 4 bits and do 0, 0, 0, 0 to 1, 1, 1, 1 and write it out in the series, and I mean quickly, like, then go home and learn how to do that. You need to do that, especially if you're going to do reversing or you're going to do certain types of rootkits or hacking. It's going to help you. Like I said, for binary math, same thing. And I talk with people who are way above my level on a lot of subjects who can't do simple things like that, that rely on their tools so much. It's amazing. Same thing with hex. How many of you have a general understanding of why we use hex? Tell the truth. Don't lie. How many of you have no fucking clue why we use hex? Tell the truth. Okay, so a lot more than I thought. It basically, for the few that raise their hands, it boils down to the fact that we don't want to waste space in the memory that we have, and ultimately our systems are a collection of on-off switches, right? So it's a much deeper discussion. If you don't, and those of you that were embarrassed and are shy and didn't want to admit that you don't know fundamentally why do we use a hex representation, now go look it up so that next time you don't lie. So, interesting side tangent. What would be the largest digit in Bart Simpson's phone number? I've asked this before. Who knows? What's the largest digit possible in Bart Simpson's phone number? Why? How many fingers does Simpson characters have? So what do they count in? Octal, base 8, right?
Their phones definitely have 9 keys.
What number base do you think a pirate would count in? Hexamal, radius 6. Why? 5 fingers and a hook. Right? So we actually created a thing called the pirate radix. For those of you who know what the term radix means, it's just referring to the number base. So the pirate radix is base 6, which is also called hexamal, not hexadecimal. But anyway, that's nerd speak for later. Things I think you should know about, there's a list for you. If you don't at least know what these things are, I would suggest you look them up. Especially if you're going to come and have a conversation here with people at DEF CON. And by the way, I totally encourage you to approach the speakers at DEF CON. I say this every year. If you approach somebody at DEF CON and they are too high and mighty to talk to you, then they're a douchebag and I don't want them here anyway. Thank you. And I don't care who you are because everybody started somewhere and built themselves up. And we have too many people in this community now who are becoming InfoSec rock stars that think they are too cool for school to talk to people. And that's got to stop because we need to band together. We got enough problems with people trying to cram back doors into our crypto systems and all kinds of other discussions that if we have infighting and are too elite to talk to everyone else, it's really going to destroy the community. And I really love the hacker community. I donate tons of my own time and money to make DEF CON happen every year. So another group of the things that I think that we should talk about or you should at least know about. By the way, going back to my discussion on tinkering, if you do not know how to set up a VM and experiment with stuff that would otherwise put you in jail for doing in the real world, learn. If it's not a matter of finance because there are a number of free solutions. VMware Player is free. People are now giving out VMs of stuff. You can also get VirtualBox, and there's all kinds of stuff out there that allows you to set up a system and attack it, to hack it, to throw Metasploited things, to try and fuzz things. And I'm trying to get the tinkerers back into the community. And one of the ways to do that without going to jail these days is through virtual